Welcome back to the Mama Judy, that's me, and the Jill, that's
Hi.
her, podcast. And if you joined us before, you know we started out talking about that blank canvas, that getting started. And I thought maybe it would be fun, Jill, to just continue that with the assumption we've all made that mark, we've gotten started, we're over that hump. But then where do you go if you're not being inspired? You've made your marks and you don't know what to do next.
Yes, I love that idea. Okay, so before we jump in, let's talk about what we're working on this week. So what are you working on creatively this week, Mama Judy?
Well, actually, I have another thing that I try, and that is they're called wanderers, from the artist that did the class, and they're actually figures with clay faces, sticks, and bodies covered with whatever fabric. So I'm working on finishing two of those that I started. So
Ooh.
my house is like, that project is in the back area. I have my little office work. I have my stitching over here. It's like going through a museum that hasn't been kept up.
I love it. It's so fun though to walk through your house and see all the projects you're working on. I this week am working on, I just finished up, I'm working on a stitch journal. So it's hand stitching with embroidery thread on a little linen napkin. I have these 4 linen napkins. So I just finished up my second linen napkin with a bunch of different stitching on there. And it has been so much fun. And I'm going to start another one soon, but I'm working on some other things first. But so that's what I've been working on.
Excellent. Okay, Jill, one of the things we want to talk about is sources of inspiration. And I've got mine, but I'd really like to know where you get yours.
One of the best ways that I love is going to a bookstore and looking through magazines. So I literally will go to Barnes and Noble or local Malaprops or whatever this a bookstore is. And whatever section it might be, it's usually going to be magazines or picture books or art books, but it could be literally could be a photography book on cars from the 1950s and 60s or something like that. Because sometimes when I'm looking in books, I'm looking for fun colors that go together. Now that I've been doing stitches and working with fabrics, I'm just curious, like we talked about when you come to a blank page, sometimes I go and look in an art book here that I have at home just to see what famous artists, what colors they're putting together. Oh, that orange and that blue look good together. So it just inspires me then to go dig around in my fabrics or my, threads and stuff and pull out colors like that. So that is a major source of inspiration for me. Magazines, books, art books that I have here with the pictures and the colors that are within those pages.
Anything else? I think that's awesome because that's available to everybody.
Yes.
Whether you go to a library or a bookstore or your own, go to the internet. We all love Pinterest for all the beautiful things.
Absolutely.
So when you get inspired by something like that, what's your next step?
Well, let's say it is a book at home. If I have an art book, so I just like to keep a few art books around. I will literally just start flipping through the pages and whatever jumps out at my eye in that moment, and it's going to be different every single day, right? I mean, something's going to catch my eye. And if it's, like I said, it's more about the colors that will pop out. And one time though, I did a stitch project. This was really fun. It's a famous artist. I cannot remember who it was right now, but anyway, famous artist in one of my books. And there was a scene with a little sailboat. And there was, I think, some mountains in the distance and some flowers in the foreground. So I did a little stitch project, just a 5-inch by 5-inch piece of fabric. And I cut out the pieces so that it, and I stitched with my needle and thread. I did little French knots to make it look like flowers in the foreground. And I did, some different stitches to make look like grasses. And so I basically recreated what I saw on this page. It was sort of copying that, but it didn't matter because it was inspiring me and obviously did not look exactly like he did it. And it was so much fun for me to create. And I'm going to be developing sort of a landscape art way of doing some stitching. So I'm working on that, and that inspired that idea for me.
That's excellent because it kind of plays into what I do a lot. I go out and I look at artists of all kinds. And maybe steal isn't the right word, but I definitely copy. And I'm okay with copying because all I'm trying to do is go back to what we talked about earlier, take that first step on some project. And no matter if I tried to copy something you did, Jill, it's still going to be my version of that. And in fact, what I'm doing in copying, to me, it's on, and I don't know that everybody feels this way, but I feel like when someone copies you and gets inspired by you, whatever you're doing, that's one of the highest forms of a compliment. And I don't mean someone who copies your work and then tries to sell it off as theirs, but you're copying something that has touched your heart that you want to be part of. And so I might go out and I will mention an artist that I've done this on. And she happens to be an Asheville, North Carolina artist. Her name is Jamie Bird. Beautiful work. So opposite of my colors and everything, but I love it so much. I've tried emulating, and there's a big difference between imitating and emulating her work, and it's been fun. But if I try to compare myself, I'm not going to be happy. But I mean, she's been doing it for 30 some years. So why would I think I could do it on the first try? But it's been inspiring to me, even though it is nothing that is crossing over into my journals. But because I'm inspired, which is a state of mind, I can take that same inspiration and, just like you did, transfer it to what I'm working on. And it's almost like when you get inspired by something, whether it's a book or an artist or nature, you've opened your eyes a little wider. So when you go back to your work, you see the same page or the same pile of fabrics in a different way. And
Yes.
that then allows you to go to the next step. It's all part of that wonderful, wonderful process.
Yes, I
Oh,
love that. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then one of the simplest ways to get inspired is to get outside your house and go out into the natural world with the eye of looking for shapes, colors, and designs. One
Yeah.
of my most inspiring lately, I was walking by a pond where we live, and it had about a foot of green and white scum all the way around the pond. But when I looked down at it with my camera, I thought, this is an absolutely beautiful, natural painting. So I got very inspired by it.
Right. So you'd be basically kind of copying off Mother Nature by taking that, looking at that and using that to inspire work. I mean, I'm not saying you're copying, but I wanted to read a quote real quick, and then I want to come
Okay.
back to a beautiful tree that inspires me in my neighborhood every day. I want to come back to that. But Austin Kleon, who wrote this book called Steal Like an Artist,
Oh,
made me think about this quote. This is what he says in his book about copying. And it says, start copying. Nobody is born with a style or a voice. We don't come out of the womb knowing who we are. In the beginning, we learn by pretending to be our heroes. We learn by copying.
you know, Jill, that is so, so true. I'm going to deviate a little bit. When I was in the grade school area, my hero was Zorro. So I did everything I could to copy Zorro. I had a black cape, I had a whip, I had whatever Zorro had. So that innate natural thing to copy our heroes isn't just in art. We do it in life too. But so if we do it in life as kids, it's very natural to do it in our art.
Yes.
And no, you know, okay, let me just touch on the words emulate and imitate. if I imitate something, my goal is just to copy it exactly like it is. If I emulate it, I'm using that as a source of inspiration, but I'm putting my twist on it. So yes, I'm copying, but I'm not copying it literally.
Right. You're not tracing it or something like that.
Absolutely. I'm not rushing down to the store to buy exact colors that were used. I'm emulating it. I'm using as that starting point that we talk about that is so important in any project. And sometimes if you know, we talked about that blank page, but let's say you're very comfortable in your medium, but you just haven't been inspired to do the next painting
And
or the
I
next
think
project.
also,
Then go out and look at everybody. I'll guarantee you we're not the only two artistic okay. people that
I'll pick
do
it
that.
up till you think of it. Right, exactly.
Okay, so if you have somebody on Instagram that you like to follow, or there is a particular type of work, it's so great. Instagram can bring you the whole world. So or YouTube, both of those two things, you hashtag whatever you're interested in, then you get all these inspirational things that come up that you can then pick and choose. So you don't even have to leave the front of your computer, although I recommend you do, to get inspiration.
Yes. And one thing, and you mentioned Pinterest before too. So that's another great resource for people to do the same thing. But this is a prime example. There's a woman on Instagram that I follow. I think she's from California, but she does a lot of stitching and she does these birds. Everything she does birds every time, and they're different birds and stuff that she sees, and I think in her yard. And I've always been fascinated by it. At some point, and I've saved a couple of her posts. I'm going to go back. I'm going to kind of see what she does. I'm going to try it out for myself. I'm going to cut out the fabrics like she does. And if she has a reel that maybe she shows her process, I'm going to do that and use her as my guide or my teacher in just trying something out, whether I'm going to becoming a person that does bird stitches birds or not, it doesn't matter. It's just a fun way to flex your creativity muscle and learn something new. And when you were saying too about, you know, even trying to do what Jamie Bird, the artist that really inspires you, something like that, we can learn so much about technique and style from these people.
Absolutely.
By doing this. What did you call it? Emulation?
Emulation. You're emulating them.
Because the way they're painting may be based on a very specific skill set that we might take and use that in our own art, in our own way, but we wouldn't have thought about it. Because I was doing a stitch, I mentioned this before, but one of my favorite stitches is the feather stitch. And I call it the coral stitch because it looks like coral to me. I have just been doing it straight, you know, stitch up, stitch across, do the feather stitch, until I saw an artist on Instagram and she just kind of wove that same stitch all around in a curvy design. Mama Judy, I had literally not even thought to like make that stitch curve around my fabric. And the minute I saw that, I wasn't copying exactly what she did, but I started doing that, and it has freed up such joy in my heart about that stitch. And it's just even more my favorite stitch.
That's a perfect example. And because you use that example, which is beautiful, I'm going to give you my latest one. Anytime I find old vintage clothes, pants, whatever, I don't throw them out, or I could buy them and I don't throw them out. But a lot of times you don't know what to do with the pockets of a pair of pants. And I had some old vintage linen ones that I cut up and used in other journals. And I had these pockets. I thought, God, I hate to throw anything away. I can use it somewhere. You know, I have things from 25 years ago I still haven't figured out how to use.
Okay, wait, back up 1 second. So the rest of the pant, just in case I'm thinking someone might be thinking, well, wait, you're using all the rest of the fabric for what? Are you cutting it up to be pages in your journals?
Pages in the journal, or binding, or covers, whatever.
Okay.
Or yes, that's exactly, or even my fabric, my textile, my little textile pieces that I make. So yes, but the pockets, you look at it and you go, God, I don't know exactly how to use those. So I stick them in a pile. Again, going through Instagram, I came across another artist post who had started a class. Her name is Roxanne Evans Stout, and she has a class out that deals with mixed media, but mostly fabrics. And I believe it's called Pockets of Scraps. I just looked at her post, and all of a sudden, just like your feather stitch, the light bulb goes, oh my God, why can't I use those pockets for pouches which I had been making from scraps to put my journals in. So when I sell them, they go in the pouch. Well, sure enough, the biggest pocket I had fit the last journal perfectly. But if I hadn't been scrolling through, I wouldn't have triggered the light bulb.
Yes. And I am going to link up to, you just posted about this on Instagram, I think yesterday or something, because I saw that.
I did.
The idea of and I'm going to link up to it or share a picture in our show notes or something so people can see what you're talking about, as well as Roxanne. I'll link up to her Instagram as well. And it was such a genius idea, because then it's something I would have never thought to keep the pockets. I would have just tossed them. So good on you for keeping those around to one day be able to use.
I know, I'm so excited. I have some more in process. I have no idea if they'll ever fit a book, but I'm so excited that I found a use for them that I'm stitching on them. Okay, that's another project. I'm stitching on pockets.
I love that. And one thing I think this should be a whole episode that we talk about this too, but is the comparison game. One thing you want to be careful about, not going down the rabbit trail of looking for inspiration and start comparing yourself to others or feeling intimidated, which we've talked about before, about starting because, well, that's so good. How could I ever do that? Or hers is better. It can stop you in your tracks for sure. When you're looking for inspiration to just almost get kind of depressed because everybody is so amazing out there except for you.
I know. There's probably 85 million people out there going, oh, she's just like me. I feel the same way. No, we all do that. And that's true. So I would like to talk about that at some point.
Okay.
But inspiration is out there every time you wake up. There's some way to get inspiration, and there are no rules for it. You just go out and you open your mind like a child and you just look around. And the more you can do it without thinking about it, almost like veg out in front of a magazine with beautiful pictures, or on Pinterest or out in nature. Because when you take the conscious mind out of the process, you allow the subconscious level of creativity open up and grab those things that you're not even aware it's grabbing, but trust me, they'll come up at some point, sometime.
Yes. And it's like a walking meditation. Sometimes I will leave the house with the intention of having kind of some meditation time. And so I'll just walk. I'm not going to put my earbuds in and listen to a podcast or listen to music or anything. I'm just going to walk. And I'm telling myself as I leave, be hyper aware of your surroundings, meaning I might look at the ground, the pavement as I'm walking and see these great cracky designs that are inspiring. And I would not have even thought to look at those. Or I mentioned this tree in my neighborhood, all up and down near the lake near our house are these sycamores. They have those beautiful kind of camouflagey light brown and light tan spaces. Every time I pass those, I think about like, ooh, I want to go back and stitch something with those colors. And I love those shapes. And I am so inspired that, but you have to sometimes be intentional because you can miss a lot. And when you really decide to go out with intention and look at stuff, you are going to be amazed at what you're inspired by.
Absolutely. And, you can get some inspiration and think, oh gosh, I'll never remember that. So you talked about your journal, and what I know that some artists do is they have those 3x5 cards you always had in school that you wrote things on. Index cards or a little notebook, and they just carry it. And when they see something like yours, you'll go, great cracks, and they'll do a little sketch. They take it home. They've got the inspiration, but they don't have to try to remember it
Yes.
because
And
they've got it in their pocket,
exactly. I
whatever.
love, or in your bra, tuck it in
Or
your
in
bra.
your bra. Oh, mine maps in the pocket all the time, especially
Um,
for Kleenex.
Yes. I love the idea about jotting it down with paper and pencil instead of also having your phone. But the phone can, your iPhone, or if you have a smartphone, can be helpful too, because a lot of times I'll just snap a quick picture of it to remind me. Or if you have a notes app or something on your phone, you can do that. Now, just as long as you're not going to get sucked down some rabbit trail on your phone, that can work really well. But I love the idea of an index card and just a pencil and a pen in your pocket too.
Because both ways, and especially if you have an index card, again, you have to use your hands, you're tactile, so you're keeping the hands involved with the brain.
Ooh.
Just be sure, if you're looking at those inspirational things on the street, watch for cars, because I have almost gotten run over looking at things on the ground. um, I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
So any way that you can work it to your style, your lifestyle, your personality, develop your own system for inspiration. But you'll hear me time and time and time and time again refer to go back to the child. Always check in with the child, because the child is out there, first of all, to play and have fun. And no matter what your art level is, if that's your profession or you're just picking something up to satisfy your soul, you need to have fun. When it stops being fun on some level, it's probably time to take a break.
That is, and we mentioned before, we've known each other for 30 years. You've been my bonus mom for 30 years. And that is one thing that, if someone said, tell me about one of Mama Judy, what has she said to you? What has been meaningful in your life, would always be to have fun with it, find joy, be creative in that, like, and just to your pure and for yourself. That's another thing you always tell me. You're doing this for yourself, Jill. You're writing this or you're stitching this or whatever for yourself. It's not about other people. And that is just, you've taught me that over the years, which is very helpful to me.
That's excellent, because I had to learn it too. And it's a long process. So if it can help somebody else make it slightly easier, that's great.
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to say before we jump off is another great form of inspiration. And if you're watching this, if this ends up on YouTube, which is our plan, behind Mama Judy is sitting in one of the bedrooms in her home, and it's beautiful. I know you've created those pillowcases because I've seen that fabric. You created something for me, or maybe it's that Ralph Lauren thing, but she's got stuff that she has created behind her, and even the way that she painted the walls. Now, yes, she is a very creative person that can do all of this stuff. I'm not that person, but I go to her house and I steal ideas. And whether it's me stealing ideas like, ooh, I would have never thought, if I see something like that at an antique mall, I would have never thought to hang that on the wall and put a book up there or something. So even when you go to your friend's house that have really neat houses, or like my Mama Judy has, steal ideas that way too. Like, look around and see what you can put into your own pieces of art, or even just in your own home, and that kind of thing as well.
Absolutely, because I've stolen these from people. Speaking of stealing from other people, I want to touch base on something we talked about before in one of the episodes, and that was that we are all originals.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what we do, it's an original. The thing to remember is everything has already been done, said, whatever, put down by somebody else. So we're not inventing anything new, except it's our version of it, our interpretation of it. And that makes it a one of a kind, because each person is a one of a kind.
Agree. And if you just to say, look around on Instagram, you do these beautiful journals and you sell them on Etsy. There are a lot of other artists that do the same thing, and they
Absolutely.
have beautiful art just like you do, but they're also different and individual, which is amazing. And so it's fun for us. There's enough artistic and creativity and ideas to go around. And like you said, we're all specifically individual in what we do.
Absolutely. There's a book that I'm going to have you reference at the end of this. It's one of the best books I've read in general on our creative way of living, basically. And the statement in there that just kind of blew me away, because I was having one of those periods that I was uninspired. I'd done the marks on the paper, but I wasn't going anywhere. The statement that this person wrote was, if you're having a block, it's by choice, because creativity and the flow of creativity never stops. We may choose consciously or unconsciously to step back from that flow. And it was like, again, this time it wasn't a light bulb. It was someone with, a sledgehammer that hits you upside the head, and you go, oh my God. And you realize, and some point I'll share it, I unconsciously chose not to participate in the creativity. So I was having a block. Now, a lot of people may not agree with that, but it really, really kind of shook my foundation on how I look at being blocked.
And was that particular time that you're talking about, was this a block for a long amount of time, or was it just a shorter time block? Or is this like a big lifetime moment, or smaller time?
A smaller time.
Okay.
Just recently, like 2 weeks ago. So you're never, ever too experienced or too old to learn something new. And it's mainly looking at things from a different perspective, because we all get in habits of looking at things the same way. But yes, that was a big one.
And so that just happened recently. How did you unlock it or get out of it? Was it one of the things we just mentioned in this episode today, or was there anything in particular that helped you get out of that and back into the good flow?
Yeah, two things. Number one, I recognized why I unconsciously, what I had done, what fear basically was keeping me from participating in the creativity. I mean, this could be a podcast in and of itself. And then I went in and stood in front of all of my little ink bottles and scraps of paper and said, I choose to participate.
Ooh, that is, and you did it.
Well, and then the next journal was one of the easiest ones I've ever done. Go figure. It works.
Wow. That is amazing. Oh, that's so good. Well, if you're listening, we hope that any of these ideas, tips were helpful to you. Mama Judy and I would love for you to reach out. And if you want to hear something, us discuss something or chat about something here on the podcast, we would love to hear from you. So reach out to us in direct message or email us. That'll all be in the show notes. But we're just so grateful that you joined us. And this is a lot of fun for us as bonus mom and daughter to have this chat. And we thought it would be fun to share and hopefully inspire you or help you feel like you've got a friend in this journey, as we all need. And so
absolutely.
Love you.
Love you too.
We'll be here at same time next week, same place, same time. All right. Bye.
Perfect.